much sleep do you really need? We assess that we sleep for recovering our body, right? So we know it's important, recover from that stress, but how much sleep do we really need? And the general guideline, as it is currently, 7 to 9 hours is usually a good ballpark. Below that, so say below 7 hours of sleep, that's when we start to notice a lot of decrements in your overall health, which we'll actually go further into in the rest of this podcast. There's a lot of potential bad things that are going to happen to you if you neglect your sleep and deprive yourself of sleep. And maybe not even deprive yourself, maybe even just get less than that recommended 7 to 9 hours. There are still going to be health concerns and health decrements. And I will say this is a general guideline. With that said though, you are very individual as a person. So your sleep, you may be able to get by on 6 hours, feel good. That might actually be enough for you. While others need a lot more. Somebody who's maybe a high-level athlete, they're probably going to need a little bit more sleep. Genetics do play a role in this, but reaching 7 to 9 hours is a very good recommendation. And I also want to say too, when we're talking about this is the time spent in bed. This is the time spent in bed. So a lot of people get sleep time in bed and actual just simple time in bed different. So for example, if I go to bed and I'm in bed for 9 hours, I might only be sleeping for 7.5 to 8 hours, since when we're in bed, we often toss and turn. We get up to go use the restroom in the middle of the night. There's so many things that happen where we're waking up throughout the day that it actually decreases that overall sleep time, or what we consider sleep time. But just remember, if you're getting 7 to 9 hours where you're in bed, you might be getting a little less. And I think this is a good point to note, and something that I always talk to with individuals, because they're thinking like, oh, I'm getting 8 hours of sleep, great. But if you're somebody who maybe has sleep apnea, for example, or just can't fall asleep very quickly, can't fall asleep very well, you get up a couple times through the middle of the night, you might be waking up 30 to 45 minutes just in those little instances. So just something to consider. And then also too, why is it so hard to get this 7 to 9 hours of sleep? Why is it so hard? We could be stressed out. Stress plays a role. Maybe your anxiety is increased because of that stress. There's lots of distractions. So maybe some good distractions like family distractions, or maybe some quote unquote bad distractions, like you have your, what did it say, like scrolling on the phone, right? That's another huge distraction that people always have. Maybe there's just something on the news. Maybe you're just highly distractible. Some people just can't pay attention very well. And then I also think it's very hard to get this 7 to 9 hours because people think we need to consistently grind through our life, stay up and just do a bunch of work without any rest at all. And this is a huge problem because it's something that society is built off of. Society basically dictates, if you are somebody who's sleeping, right, you're considered lazy versus somebody who maybe goes in and works earlier at the office, right? You're deemed as somebody who's a good employee. But that's a huge problem because, again, as we'll discuss in the podcast long term, sleep is super crucial and can lead to a lot of bad issues. Lots of bad issues. One of the other things to mention, a couple other things to mention, sleep depends on your age too. If you're somebody who's developing, maybe a little bit younger, you're likely going to need a lot more sleep versus somebody who's older. You're basically just not developing. And when you're developing, your body is using so many different systems. It's rapid fire, needs a lot of recovery, right, when we're talking about developing. So just something to consider. Usually older adults, and this is typically why older adults do sleep less. One, they have a lot of sleep disturbances, but also two, they just don't need as much to help them regulate. With that said though, it should still be a primary goal to get as much sleep as you need. It shouldn't just be like, oh, I'm getting older, and usually when you're older you don't sleep as much, so I'm just gonna not sleep as much. No, you should still get enough sleep for yourself, and this is going to be kind of dependent on where you're at individually. And just remember that lack of sleep is very fluid too. So for some individuals, as I mentioned, having 6 hours of sleep is going to be plenty for them, while others, they're going to need quite a bit more. And it's really going to be something that you need to find for yourself. But general guidelines, 7 to 9 hours